Um, all right, I'm here with new complexity player QXC. He just switched a few days ago, or it was announced a few days ago. So how's your new team treating you?
It's good. I really like the guys at Complexity. The management has been really supportive, and a lot of the players are old friends from Root Gaming or from Beta, basically. So that's really nice.
Yeah, Cats, Drewby, is that part of the reason why you decided to go with complexity? Did they kind of convince you, or was it just an easy decision?
Um, I don't know. Complexity is a really nice brand. They've got a lot of history. They're well established, and I have a good relationship with the players and with the management. So it seemed like a pretty natural fit.
They've actually had some really good results recently. They placed, really high at MLG, two players, DRG and Naniwa. Looking forward to practicing with those guys. Are we going to expect a tour of the MVP house soon from you?
Well, I am still in school until May, but hopefully when that's over, sometime after that, pretty soon after, I'll be going to Korea. Hopefully, I'd like to. But yeah, not until school's over at least.
Well, you only have, like one more year, right? Or one more
One semester.
semester.
Yeah.
And, you're studying computer science. Is, something in esports going to be long term for you, or is just the computer science thing a backup plan? Is that how it's going to go?
Yeah, pretty much. The computer science thing was originally me following what I thought I wanted to do, and then somewhere along the way, I determined that I actually like playing video games more than I like programming and things like that.
It's
So
funny how that works out, right?
yeah, who would have guessed? Um, yeah, so I'm hoping after graduation I'll be full time doing this.
And is it just going to be, you're going to be a full-time player practicing all the time, or are you going to try and do some other stuff? Like I saw you are one of the few players that actually did casting for GSL, Idra and you, and there was a lot of good feedback. People really loved it when you casted with Wolf. So you think that's kind of, you want to weigh in on the caster player at the same time kind of thing going on?
Kind of the way I look at it is if you're full time and you're really intent on being the best, which is what I want to do, anything you're doing that doesn't actually make you better at the game is not a good use of your time. So probably after graduation, assuming all my finances and things are in order, I'll probably stop giving lessons. Um, I don't know how much I'll be streaming because I generally find that to be a slightly worse form of practice, and I don't intend to really do any casting at all.
Yeah, like the all the Mouse guys said that they don't stream because they're like they're afraid that their styles and like strategies are going to get out there and it's easy to be studied, whereas all the Liquid guys stream a ton. And I think that you think that for like a creative player, like you kind of do unorthodox things, kind of like the way TLO does. Do you think doing streaming a lot for you guys especially hurts you because it's kind of like you innovate a lot and you do a lot of different things and you can't really surprise people as much if you stream all the time?
I think it depends a lot on what you're going into. For example, if I was going into the GSL coDs round of anything, I would probably stop streaming until that was over because I know my opponent. I know there's at least one person who has a lot to gain by studying me. But if you're going into an open bracket of MLG, like nobody's going to. If some players decide that you're important enough to study and snipe, then they're probably lacking in other areas and someone else will knock them out. So like a big open tournament, MLG, DreamHack, NASL, I don't think streaming is a big deal. Anything that's you have several days to prepare for one specific person, I think streaming can be really detrimental.
So you are actually kind of in school full swing now. Would you say that you're like kind of rusty now? Not really in practice. How long does it get you? How long does it take to get you back into like full shape?
Not very long. I'm pretty confident that within a couple of weeks I can be beating anyone again. I keep I've started keeping really detailed logs of my practice. And so that means after every game, I take notes on things to improve upon, and I keep it organized by build. And then I also store the replays with that. And so even though I'm not able to practice as much, I'm hopefully retaining a lot more than some of my rivals who aren't doing things like that. So I have a lot of different builds and I have a lot of ideas, just a lot of them aren't fleshed out.
What would you say is the one thing that you need to improve on the most before becoming like, you know, a super elite player that's like coDs level?
I need to focus on how to improve in the most efficient way possible, because the winners of today might be the people who are currently the best, but the winners of tomorrow are the people who improve the fastest. And I'm still trying to figure that out, exactly what the best way to not just improve a given strategy, but make sure that the given strategy you're improving is the right one.
So, I mean, the coDs Finals just happened very recently. Did you get to catch any of those games?
I didn't watch it live, but I started watching the VODs. Jack G looks really solid. I already know the results because I always look at the results before I watch anything. Because if Jack G had gotten rolled, I wouldn't have watched it at all. Like it doesn't seem helpful. But I mean, it's a very good example of how good you have to be in order to beat the best. I think they both really set the bar for the top tier right now, at least in that setting. Because there's a difference between, again, there's a difference between MLG, where you don't know who you're going to play and you don't really have a lot of time to prepare for each player, versus something where you have a week to specifically think about your opponents, study them, and do all that stuff. And Jakji really brought a good game there.
I think a lot of new people were like, "Oh my God, Linak lost." But if you are someone that followed Brood War, the later it got into Brood War, the more potent like the rising new guy was, because he usually had like crazy mechanics or whatever, and he would just, and people in Brood War that watched it are just used to like the new guy coming up and just being super good. You think if those players switch, that they'll improve so fast that they'll get to coDs and like end up winning coDs really fast, like the top tier Brood War guys?
You mean like Flash or J-Dong?
Yeah.
It's hard to say, because there's definitely a certain amount of time that it takes to switch over. But at the same time, I'm sure they know and understand a lot of things about the game, about practice, about preparing for events that most StarCraft 2 professionals don't get at the same level. They've been doing it for a lot longer and at a much higher level. And so I guess the question then is, when do you consider a Brood War player to be active in StarCraft 2? Is it when they start practicing? Is it when they start playing their first Code A qualifier? And then, like, I'm sure if Flash waited a year before he played in his first Code A qualifier, he would do much better than if he played in 2 months. And then our interpretation of how it occurred would be different.
Well, the foreigners have been doing pretty well in the last couple of tournaments. I mean, not like the foreigners like Liquid Hero, but I mean like you know, Stefano and Idra and Huck have won tournaments. Do you think that going forward, we're gonna see like top 16 all Koreans in MLG if they all come over, or do you think that foreigners are gonna be able to compete even though they're not in Korea practicing?
I think one of the big things that we're seeing is there's kind of like a cycle. Like a player gets good, and then most of them fall off a little bit. And in order to go to MLG, you have to have already proven yourself, because that's like how it works, basically, with the exception of a few people. Like MMA kind of made his debut at MLG, so did Linak. I mean, obviously Linak's very good and he's been doing well, but that was like the first thing that he won. And then, so basically it seems like a lot of the Koreans that are going to MLG are kind of on that downward part of their like meteoric rise. And so I would expect, if the people who are really the best in Korea were going to MLG, it would probably be top 16. Like if
Like Jakji.
yeah, like Jakji. So there's that. I mean, I don't really know. It seems, it's weird because like the foreigners who are winning events, with the exception of the last MLG, usually they only have to beat 2 to 3 Koreans to win it. And so there's just not as many Koreans at the event, but it's definitely not the kind of domination that we've been used to seeing in the last year.
You have experience practicing in Korea, and you've talked about how different it is and how much better it is. Do you think it's possible for a foreigner to get good and win tournaments against Koreans without practicing Korea? Because Stefano did it, but do you think that's going to happen like a lot less in the future, or do you think that's even possible anymore?
It's hard because there's 2 parts of practice. One is you have to be the best you can be. So mentally prepared, mentally focused, make sure that you're training optimally. But then that only takes you so far, because if your opponents are too weak, They're not going to push you the way that you need to be pushed. But I think it will be possible in the future for foreigners to win without Korean practice because the foreigner scene appears to be catching up at least to some extent.
Yeah, Moro said that he just died like dozens of times in a row to just react to Hellion opening, and now he knows how to defend it because he just practiced against it so many times. Did you feel the same way when playing against Koreans the first time that you got there?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the first couple of days were particularly hard. And then after that, it got a little bit easier, but it's still like I always find myself feeling like I'm more challenged when I play against them. Part of that now, though, is like there's latency from California to Korea, so that is definitely an extra challenge.
All right. Well, thanks for doing the interview, and hopefully you do well with complexity. And good luck after your finals are over and everything like that.
Thanks, and thanks to my team, my new team, Complexity, and our sponsors.
All right.